please join me in giving a giant virtual CMX standing ovation to Heather Newman.
Woo woo! Hello, everyone. Holy emojis! I love an emoji. So good. Yay!
They don't hold back, do they?
No, fantastic.
No.
What's up, CMX? I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Beth and David and everyone. Appreciate it so much. Love your team. So good.
Good. I'm so excited. And I'm really excited that we're kicking off with this conversation because this is really, I've got some big questions for you here, Heather, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yep. Cool. Sounds good.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, first of all, in your little intro there were a lot of words, a lot of teams you've worked on, a lot of different things you've done in Microsoft and all of the things you've been doing since 2001. So I'd love if you could explain a little bit about what you do in your current role and a little bit about what that journey has looked like over the last 20 years.
Sure. Let's see. 20 years this month, literally, I sent an email out to some friends because I was job hunting and a friend from theater school contacted me and said, hey, my wife's working on this thing called Tahoe, over in, Redmond. And I was like, okay. And he said, you've been producing theater and you're a writer and all of that. And he said, you should talk to her. So I met Nancy, shout out to Nancy McSherry Jensen. And she hired me to do the first 25 case studies for SharePoint, which is, an up and coming technology at the time for collaboration. And now, $1 billion business. So then I just basically said yes to every project she had, even though sometimes I had no idea what I was doing. And so thus began my, education in high-tech marketing. And I'd been running a fringe theater company in Seattle because I was a theater major at the University of Washington. And so they said, hey, we're looking at marketing, and I said, hey, have we done a big event around SharePoint? And they're like, oh, let's do that. And so we started the SharePoint conference and we had Mr. Gates speak. And that led to me doing divisional presence for Office and SharePoint and SQL for 10 years, 10 tours of duty, if you will. I was doing about 20 events a year, running around with my Maven team, basically spending Microsoft's money, building brands and organically building community along the way too. So, and then Jeff Teeper, who was head of SharePoint at the time and is back now, always said yes to all of these theatrical ideas I had, which was super awesome. So shout out to Jeff. And, that kind of led me to an exec marketing role at a global partner for Microsoft. And I was starting to travel the world. And, instead of being the producer behind the scenes, I started being a speaker again. And so I was talking about tech and culture and women in tech at the time, diversity and inclusion these days. And then I launched a software startup, became an MVP, and I was running around doing workshops and speaking and marketing consultancy. I did 28 events in 2019 in 6 different countries, right? And then COVID hit, and my entire book of business just went, right? And so Karuana, who you're going to meet, called me up one night and said, hey, we're going to work on teams shifting physical to digital and making a big push there. Can you come, help me join the team? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I did that on a contract. And then during that time, Donna Sakar, who ran the Windows Insider program and who now heads up tech for accessibility for Microsoft, called me and said, hey, you should come think about running community for Power Platform and Dynamics. What do you think? And I said, I think yes. And so that's how I kind of jumped in and got here. And my job on a day-to-day basis at Microsoft is engagement and growth, support, listening to our community members, building programs and campaigns and celebrations and gratitude to all the people who put in so much amazing time to give us feedback and to teach each other and to really celebrate, technology and the community behind it. So I get to do that. I'm gonna it got me a little misty. I get to do that every day, and it's so great.
Well, I love that you share your story because I feel like, there's a lot of community managers out there and none of us have the same path that brought us to this community management role. So it's always fun to hear where people have come from and how that journey has shaped their current role. And so then my second question is a huge one. And I wanted to ask you this because you have a unique perspective when you see these changes that are happening in the industry. David talked about them just this last year has been so wild. And the
Yeah.
word community has become such a buzzword. Everyone's talking about it. But
Right.
what's the reality of how people are feeling about community right now?
Yeah, first of all, I love David's book, about belonging, and it speaks to my heart so much. I love the way that you all present that to the world. First of all, it's great. CMEX is so great at doing that, and I feel like with community being a buzzword, everything swings on a pendulum a bit. And I kind of was when I was playing with the title, I was like, "What's the elephant in the room?" And I was like, "Well, or maybe the guitar on the wall." Which we see in so many people's backgrounds these days, right? And I was like, well, it's that we're tired, we're burnt out. There's this massive shift of working from home, and I've watched people who have, just like I produce a video a week, and I do a blog, and I do this, and I do that, and they're like, Heather, I'm exhausted. I'm dealing with my life and work and all of the other things, and so I think that screen fatigue is real. This looking glass that we're through with each other, and so I think people have been really cutting out superfluous noise, negativity and toxic people or situations in their lives, right? And so I think that so on one end we've got sort of all of that stuff that we're dealing with on mental health issues and burnout and all of that. And then sort of, on the other side of it, we've got people who, also have like leaned in super hard to their communities and almost like the hyper local community, if you will, right? The people that you've known and you've been with a really long time, that you've really leaned in there together, be it even, physically in your geo or, in a group that you're with. And so I think, community happens uh, everywhere, right? And it's friends, family, community. And to me, community is family because in 20 years, I've seen the same people over and over again at events, and I know their names and their kids, and now their kids are in college. And, so I feel like, since we can't be in person, one of the things that we did and our feelings about community as Microsoft is we really obviously pivoted from, to virtual and then content. And so we delivered this last year, a couple of things that I'm really proud of that we were talking about a bit. That was, we launched a public preview of a free user group platform, so people could host their events, and then we're kicking off more support there for user group leaders for monthly meetings. We're doing a playbook. We've got massive how-tos and templates and videos. So with that buzzword of community, we've really pivoted around how can we, one, listen to our community and see what they need and hear what they need, and then represent that in programs and support that folks want. So that's kind of some of the things for us dealing with that buzzword, if you will.
Totally. Well, and I mean, when you say you listen to your community members, I mean, it
Mhm.
shouldn't be so hard when we say, how do we build a community that lasts? How do we build a sustainable community for our business? Because really the answer is you can listen to what the community members want, ask them
Mhm.
first, and then
Yeah.
actively listen to what they're saying. And then you can make decisions with them, not for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, Karuana and I did a bunch of work together on a virtual event playbook last year in the beginning of COVID. And a lot of the work that I'm doing is actually stemmed from that, just extending that into the user group foray. And, what's cool about Microsoft is that we do a lot of cross division work. And that comes from community managers or connectors. That's what we are. That's who we are in our cores, right? That's, if you look at Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, right? You got the connectors, you got the mavens, you got the salespeople, right? My company, the consultancy Creative Maven, that word expert came from that. I'm probably more of a connector than a maven, but I think community managers at our hearts, that's what we do, is about connecting people. And so like with Jenn and Karuana, and I could name another 25, 30 people that I am actively doing things with at Microsoft. And we created a Microsoft Community Council this year. I started that selfishly because I was like, well, I don't know how everybody does all this stuff because, I've been around 20 years, but I haven't been behind the wall at Microsoft, right? For just a year and a half. So I was like, where's the sock drawer? And how do I do this? And how do you, what's your badging system like? What's rewards and recognition look like? How are you celebrating? What's the support deflection thing look like? Like all of those things in a big, massive company like this, like I needed to do some learning and listening, to the people who've already been doing it for a while internally so that I could help formulate what I was going to do for our communities for Power Platform and Dynamics 365. So Yup.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I would love to just sit and talk to you more about what the industry is looking like and the sustainability of what we're doing and the operationalization of the industry. But we just don't have that much time. And I know that you've brought two colleagues with you to join us
Yes.
on stage today. So shall we bring them on camera to further the discussion?
Yes, let's do it. Yes. Thank you, Beth. Karuana and Jenn.
Yay! I'll leave you three to it.
Thank you. This is a great opportunity, Beth, and CMX to have us come on and talk about Microsoft Community. So, Karuana Gatimu, hello. Karuana's been is the leader for the customer advocacy group for the Microsoft Teams engineering team, and Jinhong is a senior program manager for senior product, or not even product manager, marketing manager for the Azure Developer Marketing team as well, and community. So, welcome to the party. How's it going this morning?
Thanks.
Good. Awesome.
Sunny outside.
Yeah,
We're
cool.
super excited to be here. I'm thrilled to be here at CMX Summit. This is just a really fun conference, and how wonderful to be amongst other community managers. This is
Seriously.
such a treat.
Yeah,
It's our
absolutely.
community.
So
Our community is our community managers.
Yep, absolutely. So it's good. So we had been talking a little bit about community on whole and amongst ourselves, and we do that a lot through the council that we have. And I wanted to have everybody hear from you two, running and supporting community at Microsoft, like some of the biggest trends and rise of community in light of the new paradigm working with the pandemic. Karuana, you want to start with that?
Sure. It's such a privilege to see people understanding community more. I know that all of us have been around long enough when we used to have to explain what is a community and what does it do. I don't find I have to answer that particular question anymore at the moment. But I love the intro that I was listening to with Beth and folks talking about making sure that we're clear about our impact, because since the pandemic, our communities for Microsoft Teams have grown over 300%. It's not just about people trying to understand how to use our product. I firmly believe that people are seeking connection and support and understanding. I loved what you said about, screen fatigue. We have a lot of research around that's a real thing. And so we have a hashtag we use a lot, which is called humans first. So putting the people at the center of the technology work that we do and the community work that we do transforms it. And I really think that's one of the big reasons that people may come to our communities during the pandemic to understand our products, but they stay because they get nurtured as people. And I really think that that's so important. And I'm just loving the fact that we have support for scaling that and doing that and growth and all of the infrastructure needed, to deliver that experience. I'm excited about it, but I just want people to get the help that they need, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Come as you
Yep.
are, everybody's welcome, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Jenn, with what you're doing with, Azure tech groups, will you talk a little bit about how the sort of pivots and shifts that you've seen for the folks that you've been working with and different programs that you have out there in the world?
Sure, yeah. So with Azure Tech Groups, like most of it had been in person before the pandemic, and then shifting to virtual, like there was definitely a challenge, a barrier for a lot of them, because they weren't used to it. They didn't have platforms where they can go and actually just sign up and like host the events. I think a lot of it too is having that in-person connection really is important. So as we've been going through the pandemic, it's been interesting to see how it's evolved. We just had a community call earlier today, and one of the group leaders was sharing their tips and tricks for hybrid events and things that they've experienced. And they've actually been doing a lot with kids too. So in a way, that's keeping kids engaged, and then keeping their members engaged has been a challenge. But they're working through it, and they're committed to it. So part of it's like having group leaders who are really committed to the community, which is what connects us all too.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think one of the things we talk about a lot is, how, so Karuana is on the Teams team, and, I'm over in Power Platform and Dynamics, Jenn's on Azure. So, coming together on programs, but also knowing that Microsoft's a giant global company, right? And we've got different communities. We have a gaming community. We have, all the sort of different communities around, and thinking about, entry points and how do you get what you need and all of that. And we've been doing a lot of talking about that behind the curtain of like, what's the one Microsoft community look like, right? And if that was sort of utopia, what would that look like? And I don't know, Karuana, will you talk a little bit about sort of how, Teams has been the center of a lot of that stuff, but will you talk a little bit about, sort of an aha moment in managing multiple communities across with sort of the rest of us, things that have been sort of aha moments for you regarding that, for others who are doing the same thing out there in the world?
Right, exactly. Well, I think the last 16 months has been a long aha moment. I feel like that. Um, and, it's like, oh, I just walk around with a light bulb over my head. But I think a couple things that were really important to me. It's important as a community manager to understand that while you may be running a community on a specific topic, like for instance, we run the technical community on Microsoft Teams as a product, but that doesn't mean that that's all that your community members are interested in. So we talk a lot at Microsoft about don't ship the organizational chart. Because I see a question there too, which department does Microsoft Community sit in? Well, it's all over. It's not in one department, right? We have multiple products, multiple regions, and what have you. As a community manager, it's my job to create a cohesive experience and get that community member over to the people or information they need, right? So I don't just talk about Teams. I talk about Microsoft 365. I talk about career development. I talk about skill building. We talk about things that are outside the individual charter of this community so that we can be those connectors, Heather, as you so aptly put at the moment. So that was really important. And that what we do, I think I felt like sometimes maybe I was unsure about all the work I'd done in the field before joining Microsoft and coming inside Microsoft. Did people really see the effort that I was putting into this? Of course, I do have that theater background too, both behind, the stage and on the stage. And so there's a part of me that wanted to know a review, and so getting that feedback directly from people all the time in every community call. We don't just measure it once a quarter. You can come at any time and give us feedback on the community. So really opening the doors more for innovation and ideas and feedback from the community helped me as a community manager feel seen and feel appreciated. And I think I needed that. So that was something, an aha moment that I needed to know that loop that we were creating of feedback in the community wasn't just good for the members, but also for myself and all of my staff who work in this area. I'm very, very lucky to have other team members. Lori Popmeyer runs another portion of the communities we manage, and she is a rock star. And, it's really important that we invest in the people who are doing this work because it takes a lot of energy. Right. So,
Yeah,
And passion
absolutely.
too.
Jenna, yeah, totally. I mean, and then we're all doing it through screens, right? So we got to amp it up like 3 times to like get it through sometimes, I got
Well, then, that's
Energizer
a
Bunny
too.
energy, yeah. Jen, I'm going to pose the same question to you. Kind of, I know we've established that we're in a elongated aha moment, right, for all of us. But Jen, for you, we talk about that. Like, what's been the aha moments for you through this last bit?
So aha moment for me, honestly, it's been like teaching people within my teams and around me about what community really is, and then them realizing, wow, I can really connect with users, customers, just the people who are using their products, and talk about their technologies through the community side. Most of it's been through events and the in-person thing. So they've only had a couple major events a year where they go, okay, that's when I'm gonna get all the information. But now they're like, oh wait, I can actually interact with them all the time and get that continuous feedback loop, and realize that they're part of the community too. It's not like us versus them. It's not internal and external people. It's everyone's part of that community. And it's been really neat to see the adoption and seeing more internal people posting like, oh, look how many views I got, or like people are responding back to me. Those comments are great. We're doing a lot more of Ask Microsoft Anything, like AMAs, which it hasn't been too often in the past, to my knowledge, at least on the Azure side. But now they're realizing, oh, whoa, I can get all of my engineers in place and they can all be answering questions, and the community loves it because they know that those experts are going to be there for them. And so I think having that presence and being more visual, be more present online, and being there has been like one of those aha moments across the board for my teams.
Cool. Yeah, and I was thinking, because you have a lot of those. I love that, and I think we do a lot of AMAs internally at Microsoft, right? I think that
Yep.
external of the AMA, ask us anything, ask me anything, outside. Where here's the thing, I think as community managers also that empathy, one, huge, transparency, the other thing. If a community or community members smell, they will call it out, right? So like we need to be transparent about how we work together and product feedback and all of those kinds of things. We sometimes community can be a bolt-on and not part of the customer life cycle circle or flywheel or whatever you call it for your company. But if community doesn't show up there, or at least the words advocacy or customer success in some way, then there's something going on that's not right, I think. And so I feel like that transparency. Yes, Jen, what were you going to say?
It's like you're doing things in a bubble, so like you really don't know what the community wants. You're just assuming it, which is really tough right now.
Yeah, Karuana, go ahead.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, Jen, because I'm excited about this topic, though, because the other thing, too, is those other leaders in the company that live on that customer life cycle, they're your allies, right? I mean, one of the first big communities that I ran was actually inside one of my old employers, and my biggest ally was the VP of sales. He loved the technical work. He was an innovator. He loved the feedback we got. And so if people don't understand community necessarily in your organization, or you want to increase your visibility and impact, talk to the folks in operations, in support, in sales, in all those other divisions, because they will understand, right? And then you put that slide up that has, community and, like you said, advocacy or whatever as a part of that. It's so important because inside your organization, you also need to be seen and heard as much as a community manager in your community. And sometimes I feel like, yes, we are connectors, but we also need to connect on behalf of ourselves so that we get the support we need to do community well. Sometimes the examples I've seen of people who have struggled with being a community manager is simply because they did not have the proper support, because they didn't know how to advocate for themselves. Right. I view myself as an advocate inside Microsoft, for my communities and what they need, but also the continued investment in that, and as well as being actually in the community itself as a member, and a steward of it, if you will.
Yeah, in joining Microsoft again after 18 years, having someone had said to me, well, you were part of the community and now you're Microsoft, and I was like, what? Like, okay, and I get it. Okay, but to me, that's not true. I've been in and out of Microsoft for years, and I've always been a community member. You know what I mean? So, like, I think does my mindset shifted a little bit to what you were talking about, Caruana, of how to get investment and support and all of that for our communities? Absolutely. And I have bigger levers to do that with, which is awesome. But I think at the end of the day, as community managers, when when I was talking to Beth a little bit about how do we build community that lasts? It's not just a fad, this buzzword, right? Things that come to mind in the word cloud of my brain are revenue impact, measurement, investment strategy, chief community officer. Those words of like, are we investing in that kind of stuff? Are we saying those things in our meetings? Not just let's build a community. Well, are we supporting it? Are we showing what value it brings? All of those kinds of things. Jen, jump in. What were we going to say?
I was going to say, it's they always ask for ROI too, and then within when people talk about community, they think a lot of people think smaller. They think maybe their vicinity, their bubble, but really, like the challenge that we have at Microsoft is we have a global community, and we have to think about all the different users that we have across the world. People living in the U.S., like we have, high-speed internet access all the time. We have computers, we have monitors, we have extra lights. We can do things like this. But think about those who are like in South Africa who don't have this. They don't have the smartphones. They have just, I think, like 2 or 3G service. They don't always have computers. Right. They don't have internet everywhere. So how are we helping them and reaching out to them and enabling them? So it's been interesting. Huge. That was another light bulb moment. Right before the pandemic, I went down to South Africa and we had Ignite the tour down there. And we're doing some filming. And I was talking with some group leaders down there, and it was really eye-opening to understand like how much my Azure Tech Groups program was helping them, because it was funding something that for us, is like might be not that much money, but for them it was quite a bit of money. And so having that and helping them out, they said it took a whole load off their shoulders, because they didn't have to worry about the cost, or they knew that Microsoft was there to support them. And that's why actually I joined Microsoft too, is because I knew Microsoft had the capacity to be able to support and do the right thing and support that community.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've in my 28 events were, South Africa, India, and all of that. Yeah, and you can't have a myopic view that everything is the same as it is sitting here in Los Angeles, California. It's not, right? And so
Exactly.
community, as coming as you are, and all of that, and also building programs to support accessibility and allyship and inclusivity and all of that are at a top level for us. And we were talking about it and thinking about those things a lot. And Karuana and I speak a lot at events about diversity and inclusion, and have been doing that together for years. And Karuana, I know you have a ton to say on this topic as well, about sort of inclusive events and what we're bringing to the table as far as Microsoft with that. You want to tag on to that?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I feel like, I feel like it's really important to recognize, and you put it so well, Jen, not everybody has the privilege. Like, I happen to be outside of Seattle, Washington today, and I'm very privileged in the access to resources that I have. And really putting yourself in those other people's shoes. It's one of the reasons I've always loved a lot of the community events that, Heather and I and others we've done out in the field, is because we talk affectionately about the Redmond Ivory Tower, right? Everything is not as it appears in Redmond, Washington, which is the corporate headquarters of Microsoft. And it's really important to get out there and recognize the fact, from a human perspective, going back to my humans first piece. And also, community may be the first place that somebody tentatively ventures into to see if maybe they could be a part of this tech thing. You can't, I really try to get folks to focus on the new people, right? Who is new? Are you really being welcoming? Are you showing them a path to success? I can't tell you how many people I've had at events ask me, how do I get a job like yours? And it made me realize that there wasn't a great path for that, which led me down creating this course that I have on Microsoft Learn now, and other things. But, it's like, I really think that we can steward this wonderful community that we all share in to be an asset for the people who come after us, right? And that's really what inspires me and what gets me up every day. And I love what you said about Microsoft, Jen, because Satya said, don't think about working for Microsoft. Think about how Microsoft can work for you. He encourages us to bring our passions to work and have the infrastructure of a company like Microsoft help us elevate those passions. And I care about people and communities and women in technology, and I care about collaboration and inspiration. And that's what I do every day. It's pretty amazing. I can't sometimes believe that they pay me to do what I love, and I get to produce these amazing events. And wow, it's so cool. And I do want to acknowledge the question that's over there in the chat, though, that we get to do that because I'm also a data goddess, right? I know how to tell a business story with data. And so, yes,
Yeah.
I have passion and I have talent in the communities and with people and what have you. But I think one of the things that differentiates everybody on, this little virtual stage is that we know how to do that in terms of, and I tend to shy away from ROI, but I definitely talk about impact, right? And verbatims and product changes that come from the community, and making the clear dot between feedback we get in the community and improvements we make in our products and usage of the products, because people then understand it and can get help. And Heather mentioned it, support deflection. People can come to the community instead of filing a ticket. These are very real impacts on the revenue and costs of the company. And I feel like, it really helps to then define what community is, and all those things. So I'm kind of taking four of those questions at once, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
I didn't go deeper in. But I think it's really important to understand that there's the passion side of it. There's inclusion for new people. There's thinking about how to use your privilege for the benefit of others. And then there's telling that story to others who may not understand it. And with numbers, we do a slide. Lori Popmeyer on my team, she does this slide she created as, community by the numbers. And just putting that one thing up, one visual that shows people, hundreds of thousands of people in our communities, how many questions they ask, the volume of things that are happening, was really important. And so I feel like, that is going to leave this space better for the people who come after me than I found it, right? I treat community like I'm camping, right? I want to pick up all my trash. I want to leave it better than how I found it. I want to make it easier for the next generation of people to come through and do this amazing work and know that this is an option for them. A lot of women will shy away from tech because they think that they have to code. Well, I do code, but that's not the point, right? There's a lot of different kinds of roles in this world now that you can, invest in. And this is certainly one of them. And I want everyone to know that so that they have the benefit of the opportunities that I've had. So that's my soapbox on that. I'm very passionate about that topic.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. Thank you, Karuana. Jenn, will you talk a little bit about, I think we talk a lot about sort of also that honesty, that integrity, that, being real, the real feels behind all of this stuff. And so thinking about, the theater thing in me, when I could step into a room, or because I used to do casting and stuff like that, and then it's sort of when you're interviewing, and then also when you step into a room or a team, you can feel when people trust each other. You can feel that when a team is like fear-based versus trust-based and all that stuff, right? And so I think also you can feel when a community does feel valued, right? You can also feel when a community is like, that forum over there hasn't been touched or looked at in 3 months. What's up? And instead of being like, oh, well, la, 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 we go, okay, you're right. We're going to go fix it. So we talk a little bit about that and how we approach that.
Yeah, and it's back to your point of the community will call you out. So yeah, we might have something that hasn't had any posts or hasn't been active for a while, but the product teams or whoever owns it might say, well, we're coming in and going to do something in a little bit, but it's like no, the community's going to notices that, and so there's a perception too. So a lot of it's about being there. So I've been doing a lot of cleanup on my online community side of it. We used to do Karuana's point about having the silos and seeing our org charts. We used to do a space for every service. I'm like, no, people don't think about an individual service. They think about how they use it together. So building something in apps, which is going to take databases, it's going to take your networking, it's going to take the actual app service or functions or coding, right? But then now we're thinking about teams. How are we going to collaborate cross products as well? So it's not just Azure versus Teams versus Power Platform. It's hey, wait, all of this actually does connect together, and we want to make sure it connects together. And so that's I've been kind of refocusing our organization along that lines of okay, let's it's not just apps on Azure, it's building apps on Azure for Teams, or building apps that connect into Power Apps to connect to Power Apps, yeah, in that sense. So sorry, I think did I go off topic there? But yeah, I just keep thinking about all the things that it's you keep going down a path, and then it keeps forking off. It's oh, I see this, and this could make it improve. So it's been kind of an online journey and teaching people about it. But I think we're going the right direction. And people ask me oh, what's on the roadmap? What are we going to do next? I said, well, it's what the community wants to do. Let's listen to the community and see what's happening in there. What's active? What are they interested in? And we'll go that direction a bit more.
Awesome.
And I know we're supposed to. Really, oops, sorry.
Nope, go ahead. And then we're going to really into Q&A.
Okay.
So,
yeah, exactly. Because I think you hit on a really important point there that goes directly to what they were asking about in the Q&A, which is about how do we measure success? It's about engagement. I mean, yes, of course, I have a count of community members. How many hundreds of thousands of people are in, the Microsoft Teams community on the MTC? Sure. But what really matters is their engagement. What percentage of those people are actually actively posting, answering questions? Because that's the thing too. Lots of folks can post a question, but for me, a measure of health is when the community itself is answering questions, right? How active is it without the Microsoft staff actually leaning in? Of course we do, but that's a wonderful measure. And then of course we do other things like measure how many people click through to webinars or training events, right? How many people are participating in other programs, how many people go and take our online courses. right? So it's also, I used to run e-commerce for Skechers, the shoe company. And sometimes I think about this in the same way in terms of a conversion metric. So if you're not measuring conversion to other stuff from your community, I highly suggest that you do that, because it's a great way of showing that community drives activity when you have clarity about what that activity is supposed to be, right? And and I love that question about who can be a community member. Anybody.
Everyone,
Anybody
everyone's a
can be a
community member.
community member. Yeah, we don't
Absolutely.
go crazy with governance or some of that other stuff. I feel like that is good for solutions. We do that in my solution part of my team when we're releasing applications and product features, but we don't apply a lot of that to the community area.
Yeah. There's another question Sarah was asking about internal comms. How does that play in community success? And it's huge. It's such a big, big thing. I think that, one of the things that we as community leads are doing is we're making sure and ensuring that our product teams, like Karuana and I are in an engineering team, and Jenn's working with developers through marketing. We're making sure that the people that are coming on board, are you a member of the community? You should be. That should be part of your onboarding process, that you go and immediately and join the community, right? And get in there and start listening, learning, and hearing real, the buzzword of real world use cases of what is going on, right? And understand what people are going through on a day-to-day basis, right? You get in there and that's where you learn. You don't learn working in a silo, typing with your head down. You learn by listening. And so I think that, to your point, is part of that communication is about having clarity. I think, I don't know, community to me also is we're kind of the best concierge desk ever, right? As community members and managers, right? To me, I want my team to be super knowledgeable about what's going on in the company, what's going on outside the company. So when anybody at any given time, internal, external, whatever, is like, hey, where do I do X? How do I get blah? Where's a voucher? How do I get certified? How do I dip into a user group? What's going on with XYZ? I want my team to be like this on that kind of stuff, right? And so that we are of service, right? I don't know. For internal
I love that.
comms, yeah.
I love that.
Concierge.
And you create such a great atmosphere on your team, and I think all of us do, and we do that on purpose because you need to feel energized to be of service and to be helpful. And also, I find that is a great service to my colleagues. I know stuff that's going on because I had to figure it out for the community that other people don't know or hadn't had time to figure out or whatever, and I can then share that. Um, and being of service, and my communities know that I care about them. So when they have something unpleasant to say, which was another question out here, and I wanted to take this because not everyone loves Microsoft Teams. We have lots of people who have lots of feedback about our product that is not positive. And I am incredibly willing to listen to that conversation. To me, frankly, it's some of the most valuable conversation is when people are upset with my product or they're upset with a decision our company has made. That is, if I get all the joy from the happy days, I get even more meaning from being able to listen to people and help understand and translate their concerns to other people who make decisions at Microsoft. So I think that when people are upset in the community or giving you feedback about your product that isn't wonderful, is the moment when you really shine as a community manager. Are you open, right? Do you defend things or do you simply listen? Do you take that feedback to other people? Do you close the loop with your community managers? This is something we haven't always done well in some of our communities, and we're working on this year is really closing the loop. If you file a bug in my community about something, I need to come back and tell you what happened. And we haven't always done that great during the pandemic. The sheer volume of growth that we encountered during this last 16, 18 months has been incredibly difficult to manage. And so now we're coming back and saying, listen, all of you said this, here's what happened. But I feel like that's really important is to don't just enjoy the positive things or talk about what you want to talk about. Really listen to those people who have quote unquote negative things because that's your growth opportunity, right?
Yep.
That for me is the gold of it all.
Yeah. If you're looking at like when you put together a team to do just about anything, it's like you want the people who are like, yes. And then you want the people who are like, not so much. Because
Yes.
that perspective inwardly makes everything great, you know? Hi, Beth.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. You were
I
just
feel like I
flowing.
need to
There's
upgrade
so
my glasses game with you ladies because everybody in the chat is like, you both have these awesome glasses, and I'm going to have to get some fancier frames.
Well, you're going to have to be able to go like this, Karuana. What?
Whoa.
Oh, look at
If
that.
somebody doesn't help me out at some point, we're going to, okay. I'll tweet about it later, everybody. Okay.
Those are awesome.
tweet about it later. Thank you so much,
Tweet about it
everybody.
later.
That was I don't know if you can see the chat from where you are, but wow, it was on fire. People are quoting you. People are like, this is the best advice I've ever heard. So really, everybody's really excited about this conversation. One question people have is, are you hiring for community roles?
We are. We are actually.
Yes,
I
and
did
always.
see that,
Yes.
and we can get you that information right after so that you can include it in your comms and what have you. You can also follow us all on Twitter. We tend to post things there, and on LinkedIn is a great place to find information about what we're doing.
Yep.
Cool.
And yes, they're
Awesome.
everywhere. And we will post about that. There's a big job open right now too in the community area for us that I'll make sure and post about. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, all of you. Everybody in the chat, please flood the chat with your favorite emojis. Thank you very much, Heather, Jenn, and Karuana. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Big hearts. Thank you, Beth. Thanks, everybody.